So I'm going to talk today about ending feminine labels. And when I say labels, I'm specifically talking about girls. Now, if you think about long ago, when you were in high school, did any of you get called something like emo, goth, jock? So these are the labels I'm talking about. I want to start you off with a quote. Who has seen the show Girl Meets World? Well, if you don't know, I'll come back later into the premise of this episode I'm talking about. But this is the quote that one of the students gives at kind of like a debate team, and they're stating, is beauty really skin deep? And so the girl is acknowledging that she, on her position, has acknowledged that beauty is really, truly skin deep. So you're going to ask me, why is there a Mean Girls picture? Well, these are the labels what I'm talking about. The labels of having an Asian nerd, a cool one, a non-cool one, the art freaks, and we kind of still have these cliques in society today. Not so much here at San Miguel, but there is still kind of that sense. So to start you off with one story of mine, I asked my best friend, tell me, what am I? You're not going to hurt my feelings, just tell me. And she said, well, I'm going to call you a loner. And then a couple months ago, I had told her about emos and goths, and she said, okay, you're one of those too. So then I went back to contemplating my younger days when I was in kindergarten and up. And I remember being called something like a teacher's pet, a nerd. At one point, I think I did hear somebody behind my back saying nothing. Don't know where that came from, but okay. So the thesis I want to bring in today about these labels is that they're impacting society in very different ways. They're impacting both the suicide rate, the eating disorder rate, their self-esteem of kids are being lowered, and also we're seeing more bullying within these social cliques. So the story that I have is kind of the transition period for me. When I was younger, every girl I think has probably gone through this. I am going to be a princess when I grow up. Isn't that true for most girls? But then you have to get out of that mindset. And I think once I got out of that mindset about the age of 9, then I started really learning who I wanted to become. So another story that has to do with these cliques is not always so well. So I took these labels that were told to me and I changed them. I didn't make them true. But some people can't do that. The girl you're seeing on this slide, she committed suicide because she was called an emo and goth every day at school. She was in Scotland, so it's another country, but still. She was thrown rocks every day for leaving, and she was called a witch. The way she died, she took 40 pills. Her mother thought she was asleep. Her mother didn't know. So then when they actually found out, they started to read text messages, and she was marked one of the first ones to start with the text messaging and the IMing. So we're starting to see, now that we're out of that era, we're starting to see more of it once she started that case. So has anybody seen these 2 shows? So I'm going to talk about how the media portrays this. On Disney Channel, they started changing their shows a little more. So on the one that says Liv and Maddie, the premise of it is 2 teenage girls, completely opposite and such. So you see one's a girl, and one's a boy, tomboyish. And so the episode that they brought up recently, within the last year, was called Shua Rudy. The whole premise is that Maddie, the one who's a tomboy, has to basically show off her sister's clothes to her mother and her sister. Because she, I don't know, something to the effect of, you ruined my makeup. And so with that, she finds these one pair of shoes that she loves that make her find that inner girly sense of herself. And so throughout the whole episode, she's hiding it, she's not telling anyone. But at the end of the episode, her sister says, okay, I'm going to start teaching you how to do this. Let me give you lip gloss. This is the first step. And so what I took away from this episode was that I have to change myself to make my outside look like my inside, but also to conform whatever everybody else thinks I need to be. So I need to get up here and be 100% fully together in the sense that I have my hair done, I have my makeup done, I'm just ready to present and everything. Now on the opposite side, they released another show called Girl Meets World. It's the next story of Boy Meets World. And the episode that I'm talking about is called Girl Meets Smackle. Now this is where that whole quote comes back, the whole quote about beauty. So in that episode, it's basically Farkle Minka is the son of Minkas, and his rival is Isadora Smackle. And so the girls, Isadora says, I want to be beautiful. Okay, so then the girls do that, and they go take her on a date with Farkle, and Farkle says, you were researching, weren't you? And she said, yes. So that's how she realizes that beauty is skin deep. So what I took away from that was that I still need to be true to myself, because she says later on in the episode, Smackle is me and I am Smackle, and you can never change that. And that goes back to the point of the media is kind of confusing our children. Because looking at these two different shows, I rather follow one that tells me to be myself, but then I get confused, should I really conform to society's views? So, now going with the whole movie aspect of it. On one side you'll see Bella Swan, the other you'll see Katniss Everdeen. Bella, if you've ever read the books or even seen the movies, she kind of makes herself be ugly. And the reason she's ugly most of the time is because she is so dependent on Edward, to the point where she will kill herself for him, just to see him one last time. She's doing everything not because she feels good about it. Like in the first book, she was more kind of a tomboy, and then she started getting girly when she started dating Edward. She didn't do it for herself, she did it for somebody else. Or on the other hand, Katniss, we saw her selfless love in movies and stuff and such, but it's because she did it because she loved somebody so much that she would give her own life for it. So she's not dependent on a boy. Even in the movie, the first one, I think Sidna says something to the effect of, don't you know you're beautiful? And she says, no. So this goes back. So going back to the whole labeling thing, we can say that they're both good role models, but which one is actually kind of better? Would I rather be known as the person that depends on some guy to give me happiness? Or should I depend on my family and the things I love to make me happy? So there is a good side to this whole labeling thing. So this game called The Last of Us, there was controversy about it. Because, if you've noticed, the girl's in the foreground. That's not typical. So when this came out, they said, okay, move the guy forward, but the girl back. And they said, no, because we're trying to show that girls are strong too. Now, had they left it? I don't know what I could tell you. They probably would have better demographic with the boys, but now girls are willing to start looking into this whole, we can be strong, we can be just as tough as boys kind of thing. And that shows that society is trying to change our views on girls. Girls don't just have to be associated with being peaceful, elegant, wearing pink, being all put together and wonderful. They can actually be strong people too. Another way that they're starting to do this is that a teacher and a parent noticed that girls, like many of you, would wear shirts when you were little that had either sparkles or a bow or something of that sense. So they said, why can't a girl like ninjas? Why can't they like dinosaurs? Why can't they like something other than sparkles? So what they decided was to create dresses for your little girls that uses patterns similar to this, like the chemistry pattern listed above. There's one of dinosaurs, there's one of just different things that are more associated with males, I guess you would say, because science was typically associated with males. And when they do the top, because this is the skirt, when they do the top, they do it with colors like purple or blue or orange. They do it with colors that wouldn't be typically associated with girls, because with girls we think pink, we think pastel colors, we don't think purple, like dark purple, we don't think orange. And that goes all back to how some people are trying to change this whole view on and perception of girls and these labels that we put on each other. So, some statistics. These are statistics. One has to do with bullying and the suicide rate, and one has to do with eating disorders. So we're seeing that starting younger, we are growing eating disorders. I don't know if you remember, but when I was 5 and 6, I cared about watching whatever was on Disney Channel or Disney princesses instead of having to worry about, do I look good enough? Do you think that I'm perfect enough? Why are girls doing this now, is my question. Also, suicide is going up higher. We are starting to see suicide and suicidal tendencies as young as 10. So, where are we going? We can say, well, maybe it's social media and the bullying, but it's also the labeling. Somebody calling you emo, goth, something can still affect you. They don't know it. So when researching this talk, I actually looked at a previous talk given by Cameron Russell. If you don't know who she is, she's actually a very famous model. And she was saying how 13-year-old girls in the United States hate their bodies when about 38% of them hate them. And that number goes to 78 by the time they're 17. So by the time they're our age, juniors. So that's startling to realize that even so much younger, they're starting to hate themselves, and it just keeps growing up and up by the time they're in our teens. So, what are we doing? What are we doing to these kids that they're starting to hate themselves so much younger? So, going back to the whole, how this all connects, goes back together, is that labels, we shouldn't throw them on each other. I shouldn't be able to sit here and say, okay, you're a goth, okay, you're an emo. I shouldn't have to do that to you because that doesn't make you feel good, and it doesn't make me feel good when you do it back. So what I would call to action is we need to put rules and consequences in place for those actions. Because if you think about it, starting young, let's say kindergarten, I start calling, somebody in their class starts calling them emo. By the time they get older, they're just going to keep believing that of themselves. And that's the point, is that we need to stop doing it, even also from the school's point of view, but also from the workplace point of view. Just because a girl is more girlier than the rest, it shouldn't have an impact on what she can do. Just because she's maybe always in heels or something, it shouldn't matter if you don't think she can lift a box because she's going to break a nail. Is what I mean? And so the last story that I have to share with you today is one that I had a few weeks ago, I think maybe even a few months. So I told my best friend, obviously texting, I'm not going to talk to her about it, up and close and personal. But I said, labels are starting to get to me in the sense that I'm starting to believe things that people are telling me. That in the sense, I'm going to give up eventually because I'm just tired and I'm done. If you're a junior, you know what I'm talking about. But we're getting tired and we're just getting run down. I'm saying, okay, I'm done. She said, don't be a quitter because that's what you're going to start to be to me. And labels shouldn't define you, but if I do define you right now, you're turning into the person that's kind of wanting to be alone all the time, the loner. After she told me this, you have people who care, you have friends that care. Don't, in a sense, let it define you. Don't let it make you feel different about yourself. Because she said, what I see in you is someone that's willing to work hard for something, even to the point of where it's going to make you tired. It's going to make you feel like giving up. But you need to still keep that mentality that you're going to make it through. So my question to all of you is, how will you end labels? Thank you.